Let me continue with this gas laws. We discussed about some gas laws, Boyle's law, Charles law, Gay-Lussac's law, Avogadro's law. Now, we can combine these gas laws, and if you do that, then we will get a single expression in which all the four variables are related. A single expression in which all the four variables are there. Number of moles, temperature, pressure and volume. So, how these four variables of a gas are related. So, we will see them, we will see all of them in a single expression, and that is what is called as ideal gas equation. And this so-called ideal gas equation combines the four gas laws, which we already studied. But before starting this topic actually, how we can combine and what is the form of that expression, so-called ideal gas equation. Let me discuss a small topic, and this small topic, whatever I discuss in this small topic, will be useful to you in gaseous state and in other chapters of the chemistry also. And that topic is intensive and extensive variables. Intensive and extensive variables. The knowledge about intensive and extensive variables, their definition, their interrelation, and how do you deal with an intensive property, how do you deal with an extensive property, this knowledge is necessary for chemistry as well as physics. So, let me explain briefly about this particular topic, then we can move on to the ideal gas equation. Okay. First, let me give you some examples. What are the examples of intensive variables and what are the examples of extensive variables? First, let me give you the examples. Then I will define them, both of them. Then I will give you the properties of these two variables. What is the difference between intensive and extensive variable? Now, if you come to the examples, first let us come to intensive variable. Actually, if I list out all the examples of intensive variables, then the list will be very long. So, I will give you only those examples about which you are already familiar. So, just 3 or 4 examples, not more than that. And similarly, I will give you some examples for extensive variables also. And examples for intensive variables are pressure, then temperature, density. These are some of the familiar examples. Pressure, force per unit area, or you can say pressure of a fluid is nothing but weight density into depth, all of you recall. Okay, then temperature, it is a degree of hotness or coldness, or you can say it is a property of a system which determines the direction in which the heat flows when it comes into contact with another body. And you know about density. If it is mass density, mass upon volume. If it is weight density, weight upon volume. So, these variables are intensive variables. Now, if you come to extensive variables, then the examples are mass, volume, moles. You know, mole is the amount of a substance which contains 6.022 into 10 power 23 number of particles. Maybe atoms, maybe molecules, maybe electrons, maybe ions, you know. So, mass, volume and moles, they are extensive variables. Pressure, temperature and density, they are intensive variables. Now, let me define these two variables. What are they exactly? Okay, suppose we have a system. It may be a gas, liquid or solid. Just imagine a system. Any state of matter, not only gas. It can be liquid, it can be solid. Now, if you divide this whole system into some parts, equal or unequal, I am repeating, equal or unequal. We are dividing this particular system into some parts, 4 parts, 40 parts, 3 parts, 2 parts, that is up to you. Equal or unequal, that is up to you. So, if you do that, let us say I am dividing this system. Let me write down this as a dotted line. Okay. Now like this. So, I have divided this system into 9 parts. Part number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, divide the system. It is, you know, it is an imaginary division. We are not actually dividing that. Just to define these variables, just to tell you the difference between these two variables, I am dividing that. So, that is only assumption, imaginary. And these dotted lines are only imaginary boundaries. They are not actually present. This boundary, the outer boundary is the actual boundary. So, let me divide first the system into some parts. Then the variable, suppose pressure, volume, temperature, there are 6 variables on the board. You take any one variable. Suppose the value of that variable for the entire system and the value of that variable for any part of it. We have divided the system into some parts. What is the value of that variable for that part and what is the value of the same variable for the entire system? If they are same, then that variable is called as intensive variable. If it is not same, then it is called as extensive variable. Now, let me repeat the same definition with an example. Suppose you take moles. Now, you have divided the given system into some parts, n number of parts. Now, do you think number of moles present in any part is equal to number of moles present in the entire system? No, no way. You all know, we can all decide with common sense that sum of the number of moles of all parts is equal to moles of the whole system. So, moles of any part is not equal to moles of the whole system. So, moles is a extensive property. Similarly, if you come to mass, do you think mass of any particular part is equal to mass of the whole system? No. So, mass is an extensive property. Volume of each part is not equal to volume of the whole system. Volume of any part is not equal to volume of the whole system. So, volume is an extensive property. But when you divide the system like that, equally or unequally into n number of parts, do you think the pressure of the whole system and pressure of each part will be different? No way. Pressure will be same. Suppose you take this classroom, for example. The pressure of this classroom is, let us say, 1 atm, atmospheric pressure, because this is open to atmosphere, so obviously it is 1 atmosphere pressure. Now you divide this classroom into some parts, that is up to you, 10 parts, 20 parts, 30 parts. Do you think pressure in each part is different from 1 atm? No way. The pressure of any part remains 1 atmosphere. So that is intensive property, whose value, the value of that particular variable does not change on division of the system into small parts. So that is intensive property. So pressure, similarly temperature of the whole system, let us say for example it is 27 degrees Celsius. So after making partitions, after you have divided it into parts, temperature of the each part is same as that of the whole system. So temperature is intensive property. Density, same, does not alter, it does not alter. So it remains the same. The density of the whole system is equal to density of the any part, and density of any part is equal to density of any other part. So this is what is intensive property. So if you come to the definition finally, if you come to intensive variables, we can say value of an intensive variable for any part is equal to value of the same intensive variable for the whole system. So value for the part is equal to value for the whole system. If that is the case, then it is intensive property. And if you come to extensive property, then you can define it as value of the extensive property for any part is not equal to the value of the same extensive property for the whole system. Now this is the basic definition. So for the sake of defining the variable, we divide the system into some parts imaginarily, not actually, imaginary partitions. Now you see value of the variable in any part. If that is equal to value for the same variable for the whole system, intensive property, then that variable is intensive variable. If that is not the case, then it is extensive variable. So density, pressure, temperature are the intensive variables. Now do you know any such variable apart from these three? Now similarly mass, volume, moles are the extensive variables. Now do you know any other variables like mass, volume and moles on partition whose values change? Now you will study about so many properties. You have already studied about some properties. For example, refractive index. Refractive index in 9th or 10th standard, you must have studied that in optics. So now just imagine all of you, refractive index is intensive property or extensive property? So it is intensive property. So like that, whatever variable you may know or you are going to study about, you can classify it as intensive and extensive variables. Next, let me tell you two important properties of these extensive and intensive variables. You can say two important differences. Okay. If you come to the first one, ratio of two extensive properties is always an intensive property or variable. Ratio of two extensive variables is always an intensive variable. So extensive variable upon another extensive variable is equal to an intensive variable. Now for this, let me take an example. Suppose you take mass. So what is mass? Intensive variable or extensive variable? Extensive. If you divide a system into parts, mass of each part and mass of the entire system, they are different. They are not same. So extensive variable. Similarly, volume, another extensive variable. And you know, the ratio of mass to volume is nothing but density. And what is density? Intensive or extensive? It is intensive. So you can also say extensive variable upon intensive variable is equal to extensive variable. Or you can say an extensive variable into intensive variable is equal to an extensive variable. So like that you can change. So the first property of this particular intensive and extensive variables is that ratio of two extensive variables is always an intensive variable. This is first thing. Now second property. Now this property of intensive and extensive variables is very important while solving the numericals, particularly while solving the numericals of this states of matter. Listen to me very carefully. So this particular property is intensive variables are not additive. Intensive variables are not additive. And what do you mean by this? Additive, not additive? Okay, if you come to extensive variables, then extensive variables are additive. So what exactly is meant by this word additive? Simple. You can add them, you can subtract one from the other. Suppose you have two solutions. You have two solutions. You know density of both of them. Now you mix them and you are asked to calculate the resultant density. Now to obtain the resultant density, can you add the densities of the two solutions? No. That is what I mean by intensive properties are not additive. The resultant density is not obtained by adding the two densities, but the resultant mass is obtained by adding the two masses. See, you have two solutions A and B. Now you mix them, you will get a mixture. Mass of the mixture is equal to mass of A plus mass of B. This is what is the meaning of additive. So extensive properties can be added. Now again, suppose you have two solutions A and B. Now you mix them, you will get a mixture. The volume of the mixture is equal to volume of A plus volume of B. So mass is additive, volume is additive, moles are additive. Suppose you mix the same A and B to get a mixture. Moles of the mixture is equal to moles of A plus moles of B. So extensive properties can be added. Intensive properties cannot be added. Suppose you have two gases. The pressure of one gas is 1 atm. The pressure of another gas is 5 atm. Now you mix them. Now can you add pressures? Can you say that the pressure of the mixture is 6 atm, 1 atm plus 5 atm? No, it is wrong. So densities cannot be added, pressures cannot be added, temperatures cannot be added. Now suppose we have a sample of water which is at 25 degrees Celsius. We have another sample of water which is at 30 degrees Celsius. You mix them and you are asked about the resultant temperature. Can you say it is 55 degrees Celsius? 25 plus 30? No, it is wrong. So intensive properties, intensive variables cannot be added. And by the same logic they cannot be subtracted from one from the other. But extensive properties are added. Now the question arises here, if intensive properties are not additive, if intensive properties cannot be added, then how can you determine the resultant intensive property? When you mix two substances, we want the resultant intensive variable, resultant density, resultant pressure, resultant temperature. So then how do you get it? Simple, it is very simple. First, you convert that intensive variable into extensive variable, because each intensive variable is related to one or two extensive variables. So first convert the intensive variable into extensive variable, then determine the resultant extensive variable by adding or subtracting, then convert the resultant extensive property back into resultant intensive property with the help of the same relation which you used earlier. Let me demonstrate this with an example. Suppose we have two countries. Now first let me take a very simple example. I am talking about population density. See, any kind of density is an intensive property. Mass density, mass upon volume, intensive property. Weight density, weight upon volume, intensive property. Population density, number of persons upon area. Number of persons is an extensive property, area is an extensive property. So ratio of two extensive properties is intensive property. So population density is also an intensive property. You take any density, that is an intensive property. So suppose we have two countries, country A and country B. Two countries like that. Now it is given that the population density of the country A is equal to 100 persons per meter square. 100 persons per meter square, number of persons upon area. Now similarly, population density of the country B now this is equal to 120 persons per meter square. Now we are asked to determine the resultant density. Resultant density means if these countries are made one country, suppose if they merge each other and they become one country, then what will be the resultant density? Country A, country B, suppose if they lose their own identities, they merge with each other and become a new country, then what will be the population density of that new country, resultant country? So resultant density is equal to, now see, I already told you, resultant density is not 100 plus 120. It is meaningless because intensive properties are not unit 2. You cannot add intensive properties blindly like that. So the resultant density cannot be 220. 100 plus 120, that is 220. No, that is wrong. Now how do you determine the resultant density now? Now either you should know the population of both the countries, the entire population, total population, or else you should know the area of each country. Either population you should know or area you should know. That means we convert this intensive property into extensive property. For that, we should know either population or area. And you know, population density is nothing but number of persons upon area. Suppose the country area of the country A is equal to 1000 meters square. That is the area of the country A. And the area of the country B is equal to 1200 meters square. And that data is required for us to calculate the resultant density. Now what we do, resultant density is equal to total population upon total area. Now we are using the same definition. Density is, population density is equal to number of persons upon area. So if you want to determine the resultant density, we should require the total population, we should require the total area, and we take the ratio of them, we will get the resultant density. Now what is the total population of country A? Area is equal to 1000 meters square and density is 100 persons per meter square. So it is 1000 into 100, that is 1 lakh. 1 lakh persons is the population of that country. Similarly, here we have area is equal to 1200 and density is 120 per meter square. So number of persons in that country B is equal to 1200 into 120. That is 1,44,000. So total population is 2,44,000. 2,44,000 persons. Population of country A 1 lakh, 1000 into 100. Population of country B 1,44,000. That is 1200 into 120. Total population 2,44,000 and total area 1000 upon 1200. Extensive properties are additive. Population is extensive, I added them. And area is extensive, I added them. I can add them. So it is 2200 meter square. So now it is roughly comes out to be 111 persons per meter square. Now this is the density. Now you know if you add them then it will be 220 which is meaningless. But the actual resultant density is 111 per meter square. That means 111 persons approximately per meter square. So what I did here actually, you are given an intensive variable of two countries. We want the resultant intensive variable. For that, I converted the intensive variable into extensive variables and I took the ratio of them and I converted back those resultant extensive variables into intensive variables. This is what we do. So the actual procedure is, let me repeat that all of you. The actual procedure is intensive variable is should first be converted into extensive variables. See, each intensive variable is related to extensive variable. Density, mass and volume, population density, population and area. So like that each and every intensive variable is related to one or the other extensive variables. So first you convert them. First convert the intensive into extensive. Then you add by adding or by subtracting determine the resultant extensive and resultant extensive is converted back into resultant intensive. So this is the procedure to determine the intensive variable, resultant intensive variable. Whatever I told you about this intensive and extensive variable, using that example, population density example. Now let me demonstrate the same property with normal density, about which you are all very familiar. In chemistry and physics, we encounter this density very frequently. So by taking an example, I will tell you how to determine the resultant density. Okay, suppose we have two liquids. Liquid A and liquid B. Now liquid A density is given. You all know density symbol is rho. That is not P, that is a rho, Greek letter density. That is equal to 1 gram per centimeter cube. Now density of liquid B, rho B, is equal to 1.2 gram per centimeter cube. Now this is the information given to you. Now we want to determine the resultant density. That means you mix A and B, we will get a mixture. Provided A and B are miscible with each other. If they are not miscible, then there is no meaning of resultant density. See, if you take two immiscible liquids, for example water and carbon tetrachloride, they are not miscible with each other. And if you mix them, then they form two different layers. Whichever is less dense, that floats, and whichever is more dense, that sinks. And the density remains the same. Density of A remains as 1 gram per centimeter cube. Density of B remains 1.2 gram per centimeter cube. See, you are not getting a mixture there in the case of immiscible liquids. So resultant density, concept of resultant density arises only when the liquids mix with each other. That means they are miscible with each other. So let us say A and B are miscible with each other. So mix them. So you will get a homogeneous solution. Homogeneous solution means a solution whose density is same everywhere throughout the sample. So what is the resultant density of such a homogeneous mixture, which is obtained after mixing, which is obtained by mixing A and B? And for that, we should know how much amount of liquid A is mixed with how much amount of liquid B. See, what are the amounts? 10 ml, 10 ml you mix, or 10 ml of A, 20 ml of B you mix, 100 ml of A and 1 ml of B you mix. Actually, what is the proportion? What is the ratio of their proportions? Volume ratio or mass ratio, that we require. Even in our previous example, if you remember, we require either population or area of the both the countries. Otherwise, you cannot calculate the resultant population density. So here also we require either volumes or masses. Now suppose volumes are given to you. 10 ml of A is taken and 20 ml of B is taken. So 10 ml is A and 20 ml B. Now you require the resultant density, rho resultant. You mix both of the liquids, you will get a mixture, and we require the resultant density. Now, rho resultant is equal to total mass of A plus mass of B upon total volume. Simple. So first we have to convert the intensive variables into extensive variables. Extensive variables are mass and volume. Then you derive resultant extensive variables, resultant mass, resultant volume. That only I have written as total mass and total volume. Total mass is the resultant mass, total volume is the resultant volume, because extensive properties can be added. So I am taking them as just total, resultant or total, whatever it may be. Okay. Now total mass, that is given by density into volume. Mass of A is equal to density of A into volume of A. So then we can write down 1 gram per centimeter cube into 10 centimeter cube. This is the mass of the liquid A. Now the mass of liquid B is 1.2 gram per centimeter cube into 20 ml, that is 20 centimeter cube. Mass of volume of A into density of A, that is mass. Volume of B, similarly density of B, that is the mass of B, and I added them because mass is extensive. So this is the total mass upon total volume. Volume is also an extensive property, so it is added, it can be added. So total volume is 30 centimeter cube. Okay. Now if you solve it, 1 into 10 grams, 1.2 into 20, 24 grams. So 10 plus 24, 34 upon 30. So 34 grams upon 30 centimeter cube. And it comes out to be roughly 1.13 gram per centimeter cube. Now that is the resultant density. So converting the intensive properties into extensive properties first, then determining the resultant extensive property by adding them or subtracting them, and converting these resultant extensive properties back into intensive properties using the same formula, using the same relation. By what relation you converted intensive into extensive? Using the same relation you convert extensive into again intensive, but resultant. You take the resultant values. So this is how we calculate the resultant intensive variables. We determine resultant pressure this way. We determine resultant temperature this way. We determine any resultant intensive variable this way only. So they are not directly added. You should not add them directly. Only extensive properties can be added. So this is the second important property about these intensive and extensive variables. Now let us come to that single expression which I talked about at the beginning of this class. If you combine, I told you that if you combine all the gas laws, you will get a single expression in which all the variables of gas are present: pressure, volume, temperature, moles. And that equation is called as ideal gas equation. So now let me derive that. Actually, this equation is one of the most important relations in the entire intermediate syllabus, first year and second year together. In JEE Advanced, in NEET, in JEE Mains, you take any exam, including MCET. So this particular relation will be one of the top three most important formulae in physical chemistry. Okay. So now let me derive that. Okay, suppose we have a gas sample, an ideal gas, a gas in which there are no interactions between the particles, a gas in which the gas particles do not occupy any volume, zero volume, such a gas. So suppose we have such a gas, and all of you please recall, all real gases behave as a ideal gas under some conditions: temperature high, pressure low. Under those conditions, even real gases also behave like an ideal gas. Okay, so let me start deriving this ideal gas equation. So let me take an ideal gas whose pressure is P1, whose volume is V1, and whose temperature is T1. So the so-called ideal gas is in a particular state, and in that state its pressure is P1, volume is V1, and temperature is T1. Now what I am doing is, I am changing the state. I am changing the state of that gas, initial state, into final state. And in the final state, the pressure is P2, the volume is V2, and the temperature is T2. So change of state, initial state to final state. But in this process, I have kept number of moles constant. And all of you keep that in mind. I have changed the pressure, I have changed the volume, I have changed the temperature, but in this process the number of moles I have kept constant. So N is constant. Now actually, how can you change the pressure, how can you change the volume, how can you change the temperature? Now, it can be changed in so many ways. But I am changing the initial state into final state in one particular way, which involves two steps. In the first step, I am keeping temperature constant and I am changing the pressure. And you all know, number of moles constant, temperature is kept constant, and you are changing the pressure, volume will change, and volume will change according to Boyle's law. If you increase the pressure, volume decreases. If you decrease the pressure, volume increases. So first I am changing this state P1, V1 and T1. So in the first step, I am changing the P1 into P2. The final pressure, what is the final pressure? Whatever may be the final pressure, that is P2. So I have changed the pressure, required pressure. but I have kept the temperature constant. So T1 remains T1 in the first step. See, I have not yet reached this stage. I will reach that stage after the second step. I already told you, I am changing the initial conditions to final conditions in 2 steps, not 1 step. So I have not changed the temperature yet, I will change it later. So I have changed only the pressure. So volume will change definitely, but volume will not be V2 because the temperature is not at T2. Volume becomes V2 only when the temperature becomes T2, but the temperature is still T1. So the volume will have some intermediate value. So let me write it as VI. I stands for intermediate. It is between V1 and V2. It has not yet become V2. Now let me change the temperature, keeping the pressure constant. So P2 remains P2. Now because the temperature is changed to T2, so volume will become V2. So like that I have changed the state in 2 different steps. First step, number of moles and temperature constant. Second step, temperature and pressure constant. Temperature is changed, pressure and number of moles constant in the second step. Okay. So in the first step, because number of moles and temperature remain constant, we can apply Boyle's law. So we can write down initial PV is equal to final PV, and final PV is nothing but P2 into VI. This is the initial PV because PV is equal to constant. When temperature and number of moles remain constant, so PV is equal to constant. Okay. Now for the second step, we can write down, we can apply Charles' law because the pressure is constant, number of moles are also constant. We can apply Charles' law. So we can write down VI upon T1, that is equal to V2 upon T2. So the ratio of volume and temperature, they remain constant when pressure and number of moles are constant. So if you substitute the value of Vi, from this we can write down Vi is equal to P1 V1 upon P2. If you substitute that here, then we can write down P1 V1 upon P2 T1, that is equal to V2 upon T2. Now if you rearrange, then we can write down P1 V1 upon T1, that is equal to P2 V2 upon T2. Now if that is the case, we can write down P into V upon T is equal to constant. P into V upon T is equal to constant. Okay. Pressure, volume, product divided by temperature should be constant, and we got that relation. We applied Boyle's law in the first step, we applied Charles' law in the second step, and we got that relation. Now you see very carefully this one. All of you recall what is pressure? Intensive variable or extensive variable? Intensive. Pressure, temperature, density, these are all intensive variables. So pressure is intensive, and what is volume? Extensive. And what is the product of an intensive and extensive variable? It is extensive. Intensive variable into extensive variable is equal to an extensive variable, and extensive variable upon an intensive variable is also an extensive variable. So that means the entire value of PV upon T is an extensive variable, and if it is an extensive variable, we can definitely say that the value of that particular expression is directly proportional to number of moles. So PV upon T should be directly proportional to number of moles, because PV upon T is an extensive property, and extensive property is directly proportional to number of moles. Okay. Now let us introduce one constant, proportionality constant. So now you will get PV upon T is equal to N into R, where R is the proportionality constant. Now we can write down that as PV is equal to nRT. Now this is what is called as ideal gas equation. Pressure, volume, temperature and number of moles all are there in that particular expression. So PV is equal to nRT. And let me tell you something about R. What is the value of R and what are the dimensions of R? What are the units of R? So you can write down R is equal to P into V upon N into T. Now, if you come to the units of R, then if you take pressure in atmosphere, volume in liters, N is number of moles, temperature in Kelvin scale, then R units comes out to be liter atmosphere per mole per Kelvin. Okay. If you take pressure in Newton per meter square SI system, and if you take volume in meter cube, moles same remain same, temperature in Kelvin, then this becomes Newton per meter square into volume is taken in meter cube per mole per Kelvin, and that is equal to Newton meter per mole per Kelvin. And can I write down this Newton meter? Can I replace that Newton meter with joule, which is the unit of work, energy? So Newton meter, force into distance. The units of force is Newton, the units of distance both in SI system is meter. So Newton meter, that is work, and the unit of work is joule. So Newton into meter can be replaced with joule. So joule per mole per Kelvin. And if you come to the values, the actual value of that R, so it is 0.0821 liter atmosphere per mole per Kelvin, and it is 8.314 joules per mole per Kelvin. So these are the values of R with along with the units. 0.0821 liter ATM per mole per Kelvin, 8.314 joule per mole per Kelvin. So these are the units of R, and R is a universal gas constant. So PV is equal to nRT is the ideal gas equation.